Hi guys, so Michael Gove was interviewed by Sophie Reid on Sky News about Brexit and about how Brexit negotiations are continuing, how Brexit preparations are continuing, and who will be to blame for all of this going wrong, and of course the new name for a No Deal Brexit. So let's hear what he had to say.
I want to talk about Brexit because earlier this month you said that there was a 66% chance a trade deal would be struck with the EU. What do you put the chances at now?
Less.
How much less? Less than 50%?
Well, I think it's less. I can't be precise, but one of the reasons why it's less is the position that's been taken in the last couple of weeks by European Union leaders.
So what Michael Gove is doing here is he's trying to create a wedge, trying to put a wedge between the European Union and European Union members. So he's saying here it's the union, the leaders of the European Union, basically saying France, Germany, Ireland, for example, they're the problem. The Netherlands as well. They're the problem. Our problem is not with the European Union. It's with these people. So he's, in the minds of the British public, it's not going to work, on the European continent. They see through. I hope they see through Michael Gove. I see through Michael Gove. Michael Gove is a type of silver-tongued individual where he's a sliming individual, but he's very good at presenting himself as someone who's balanced, who's someone who cares about both sides, someone who cares about everyone. He's not an opportunist career politician who wants eventually to get to number 10 and become prime minister. That's not Michael Gove's goal. Michael Gove's goal is to care about everyone and to reach a good compromise with, between the European Union and the UK. What he's trying to do here is he's trying to create a wedge between the European Union and the European Union member states. It's not going to work, as I said, on the continent. Maybe it will. He's trying to plant it in people's minds here.
What we've seen and what our negotiators have found is that the European Union side have not been willing to produce the detailed legal text. They've not been willing to intensify the...
This is absolute projection. So he's basically said that the European Union are not willing to produce the text. This is absolute projection because the European Union have been asking the British government over the last number of months to present a text for state aid. And they said, no, okay. So at the last minute, a few weeks ago, or less than, maybe it was about a week ago, Boris Johnson's government said, yeah, okay, we'll now, yes, okay, we will present a text. Up until that stage, no, it's none of your business. It's sovereignty. To produce a text would be, encroach on sovereignty. We must protect our sovereignty. Now, yeah, okay, we'll do it. Do you see what these people are like? Everything they do, and I've talked about this since I started this channel and I started talking about Theresa May in the same way. Everything is tactical. There's no long-term strategy. Everything is okay, try this. Does it work? No. Okay, try something else. Does it work? Yes. Okay, let's move on to the next day. It's like everything they do is for that day. And then every action they take is for a day or a week. And that's it. There's no long-term thinking. It's like, how do we get over this hump? Okay, then we arrive at the next hump. Okay, let's see how we can get over this. There's no long-term thinking. Once again, it's about saying something one day and saying something the complete opposite the next day.
Talks in a way that would indicate that they were actually serious about reaching agreement. And at the same time, they've also insisted both that we accept a level of control over our autonomy that an independent country can't really accept.
So Japan is not an independent country. Japan signed a trade deal with the European Union. So does that mean that Japan is not an independent country? Actually, the UK has signed a trade deal with Japan, which is actually worse. They're actually willing to accept conditions that they're not willing to accept with the European Union. How does that fly? I wish Sophie Reid had asked him about this. How come you're agreeing to certain conditions in the Japanese deal that you're saying are impossible in the European Union deal?
And at the same time, they're saying that they should continue to have exactly the same access to, for example, our fishing waters and our fishing stocks.
Sorry to be interrupting him every few seconds, but I have to cut through this bullshit. So Michael Gove is saying, how dare the European Union want to maintain the status quo? This is the same Michael Gove that a few years ago was saying, we will be able to have all the benefits of membership, but not be a member. We'll have access to the single market and customs union, but we won't have to be a member. Isn't that great? We'll be able to maintain the status quo without actually having to pay anything into the European Union. So now he's turning around and complaining that the European Union want to maintain the status quo. Do you see this? I think it's very important for people to understand that these people are charlatans. They will say black is black one day, and they'll say black is white the next day. And they will deny the fact that they said black is black the day before. You misunderstood me. I didn't say that. They're charlatans. But it's all tactical. It's like, try this. Does it work? Yes. Okay, move on. But if people ask you about what you did, what you said the day before, deny it. I think to be a member of the Conservative Party, the first thing you have to do is lie. Maybe the second, the second stipulation on the code of conduct is to blame everyone else. You see here how Brexit is a success, but if it goes wrong, of course, it will be the European Union's fault. It will be the member states' fault. If the preparation doesn't go well, it will be businesses' fault. In the same way with the pandemic. Blame members of the public for not following the rules, even though the rules were confusing. Don't go into a lockdown. Blame everyone else if you don't have the right equipment. Blame medical staff for using too much equipment, even though you didn't provide them with enough. It's all about blaming everyone else.
As before, and so that seems to me to be the behaviour of an organisation and an institution that is not serious about making the compromises necessary.
So, very important is about Michael Gove would say the European Union don't want to compromise, and we can't have an agreement if they don't compromise. But he will never say what they have compromised. He will never say what the UK has compromised on. He will never say we have made compromises. For example, X, Y, and Z. He will never say that. Do you know why? Because he would have Brexiteers calling for his head. See, it's all about the European Union compromised, and that's it. But he will later on in this interview say how it's, we must both sides must compromise. We must have compromise from the European Union, and that's it. But both sides must compromise. He'll never say that we have compromised, and this is how we've compromised. Because it would appear as weakness to the party, to the viewers. The British people would say, wait a minute, you compromised? Why did you compromise? How dare you compromise? You said we'd be able to have our cake and eat it. Having your cake and eating it too is not compromising. You see the problem, the whole problem here with Brexit as well? It's about asking the European Union to compromise, saying that both sides compromise, and then telling the public, we didn't compromise.
To secure a deal. I still hope we'll get a deal, though.
So are the talks still happening? What's going on? Is Michel Barnier going to be coming next week? We've been having the talks? Well,
the ball's in his court. We've made clear that we need to see a change in approach from the European Union.
The arrogance here. It's like, the European Union, look, if you want a deal, you better, tick-tock. you better move your arse, okay? Like, I don't know whether Michael Gove believes this or he pretends to believe it. The idea that the UK and the EU are equals. Actually, maybe, the UK is in a stronger position than the European Union. The European Union is desperate for a deal. We don't really care about a deal. We don't need a deal. If we get a deal, okay. That attitude completely flies in the face of what Michael Gove was saying about a month ago, where it will be an absolute disaster if we don't have a deal. But he's still trying to play it out. And this is not for the European Union. This is for the British public. British public, don't worry if we don't get a deal. Yeah, everything will be okay. I know I said a month ago that it would be an absolute disaster, but don't worry. Me, Boris, David Frost have it all under control. Just relax. Don't worry about the pandemic.
I know that he'll be calling David Frost over the course of the next few days. Let's see if the European Union appreciate the importance of reaching a deal and the importance of moving ground.
I mean, it's pretty clear that you feel that they need to move further, but we do have to look at the impact that not reaching a trade deal could have on the United Kingdom. As you yourself have said, it's going to be quite considerable, reasonable worst-case scenario. Without more preparation, there could be queues of up to 7,000 lorries in Kent. Are we really willing to risk that over fishing, which is clearly a very, very important thing for a lot of people, but it represents, what, 0.12% of the economy?
Well, again, two things I'd say. The first thing about publishing the reasonable worst-case scenario is that we published it in order to show what would happen if we weren't fully prepared. Since then, government has been doing more, but in particular...
Government have been doing more. For example, we built some... we sequestered some land and we're going to build some lorry parks there. We're going to hire lots of customs officers. You know, the economy is tanking, but don't worry, if you need a job, there'll be a job as a customs officer. You know, jobs that create a lot of money for the economy.
There might be 6,000 lorries in Kent instead.
No, in particular, business has been doing a great deal more. There have been fantastic business leaders, from Richard Burnett, the leader of the Road Haulage Association.
Although less than a month ago you said less than a quarter of businesses were fully ready.
Yeah, to Adam Marshall at the British Chambers of Commerce.
See how this is typical Michael Gove. It's more like Matt Hancock, but this is also Michael Gove. Michael Gove is, putting his finger into the toolbox and pulling out another response. Typical Tory response. Don't answer the question. The question was, or the comment was, but less than a quarter of businesses are ready. You said less than a month ago, you said a quarter of businesses or less than a quarter of businesses are ready for a no deal. And he didn't answer. He just moved on. Yeah, and then look at all these great business leaders there. I don't know whether they donate to the party or not, but that's irrelevant. But look at these great business leaders ready for Brexit. Yes, but less than a quarter of businesses are ready. Not half, less than a quarter. And this isn't a problem for Michael Gove. You know why it's not a problem? Because he doesn't care. Because he will blame them for when the you-know-what hits the fan. That's what it's all about. And I've said this before on this channel. It's about blaming everyone else. Brexit is a disaster. Blame businesses. They weren't ready. We told them to be ready. They weren't ready. Even though, we told them that there would be no extra paperwork. There would be no red tape. That's one of the reasons we're leaving the European Union, is to reduce red tape, to reduce all these restrictions. Now we're going to have to impose more restrictions. There's no contradiction there, of course. We sent out documentation, 300-page documentation regarding customs checks to businesses. They have to read those documents. They have to make sure that they understand. It's not our fault if they don't understand. We're going to implement technology systems to deal with the customs checks. They haven't been tested yet, but that's okay. They'll be ready. They'll be ready to go on day one. Like every software that's ever been produced is ready to go 100% bug-free on day one. And then if there is a problem, don't worry, we'll open the border and let trucks fly, pass through without any checks for the first 6 months. Taking control back of our borders.
Who have been, and Carolyn Fairbairn of the CBI, who've been working with us to help businesses to get ready. And again, one of the things about businesses being ready for an Australia-style departure is that businesses, if they take those...
Australia-style leaving without a deal. Let's call a spade a spade. That's what it is. Australia doesn't have a...
Well done, Sophie. Well done, Sophie. Finally, somebody's calling out this crap. This is their goal. This is now the mantra that will be presented by Boris Johnson. An Australian-style deal. An Australian deal. Boris Johnson will return to Parliament in January, at the end of the transition period, and he'll say, I have peace in our time. And he'll hold up, the Australian-style deal. Or he may just even call it an Australian deal. This is our deal with the European Union. See, I succeeded. We won. We defeated the European Union. The European Union compromised. We made no compromises. we defeated them in the battlefield that was Brexit. We lined up our guns on one side, they lined up their crappy tanks on the other, and we showed them what an empire is like. The empire has struck back. This will be the type of rhetoric, I can guarantee it. Brexit was a success. Thank you. And then you'll have Boris Johnson being cheered in Parliament by Brexiteers. He succeeded. He done what no other politician could have done. He kicked the UK out of the European Union. Now, ignore all of the disaster that will surround that, but it was a victory.
Without a free trade agreement. But we have a deal, we have a withdrawal agreement. One of the reasons why that's important.
What? So Michael Gove wants to leave on the withdrawal agreement. So Michael, you understand that the withdrawal agreement is just, it deals with things that are not related to trade, not so much related to trade. It's about preparing to leave the European Union so that you have time to work out a trade deal, to work out the things that are not part of the withdrawal agreement. The withdrawal agreement is not everything. Does Michael Gove not understand that the withdrawal agreement is not everything? That you can't that the withdrawal agreement is not enough. You have to also work out, it's like a framework.
Important is that it settles the rights of UK citizens and so on. But to cut to the quick, whatever outcome we get in these negotiations, there are levels of preparation that we need to make because we're going to be outside the customs union.
We need to make. So he's talking about the future. So he hasn't prepared yet. There are levels of preparation we need to make. No, we have made. So once again, he's laying out we're not prepared yet. But it's not our fault. It's the business's fault.
And outside the single market, and taking those preparations also enable businesses to take advantage of the new trade deals that we're concluding, like the trade deal that Liz Truss has concluded with Japan that gives...
How much trade is there between the UK and Japan? Like, how much more will it improve the economy? Oh, yes, it'll be 0.07% GDP. That's how much it's going to improve the economy. So if your business is closed, don't worry. The UK economy has increased by 0.07%. So somebody will have benefited, while the majority of people will not have benefited. Basically what Brexit is all about. Some people will benefit, but the vast majority of people will not.
Gives us better access to the world's third largest economy than we did when we were in the EU.
The thing is, it's going to be quite hard, isn't it, to separate the economic disruption caused by COVID-19 and any further economic disruption caused by leaving the transition period without a trade deal. A cynic would say that it almost gives you cover to play tough and go for no deal.
No. I want a deal. I'm keen to conclude one.
I wouldn't be as cynical as those people, but I understand their thinking. This isn't the idea of, look, if it's a disaster, we can blame it on COVID. If it's a disaster, we can blame it on businesses. And I think they would try and do that, definitely. But that will only work for so long. Because you can't blame the pandemic on 7,000 lorries parked in Kent. You can't blame the pandemic on people not being able to get stuff in their supermarkets. You'll have access to food and resources, but the selection would be much limited. So there isn't a full lockdown at the moment in the UK, so you can't really blame the pandemic for what Brexit will cause. Of course, they will attempt to do that. No, Brexit is a success. The pandemic is the problem. But any problems that do appear with Brexit, they will of course blame someone else. They'll blame the European Union, blame member states like France, Ireland, for example. They're choosing, okay, who can we blame? Well, we can blame Ireland because they're close to us, and there's the issue with Northern Ireland. And then we can blame France because, we have a history of blaming France, arguing with France, attacking France, disagreeing with France. And France don't like us too much either, so there's no love lost there. It's going to be a disaster. Michael Gove will attempt to present it as an Australian-style deal. It will not be an Australian-style deal because an Australian-style deal does not exist. The European Union and Australia are now working on a deal because the status quo is so bad. They said, look, we need to have a trade deal. Michael Gove wants to have a trade deal that is the status quo between the EU and Australia, which is bad. But they would not present it as bad, they would present it as a victory. Now, Michael Gove has always talked about compromise. And, well, let's hear what he has to say about that.
But it takes both sides to compromise in order for there to be one. The EU side is not doing so at the moment. And if the choice is between...
So, once again, Michael Gove would say that there needs to be compromise on both sides. We need to the European Union need to compromise, and that's it. This is what it's about. It's about pretending something, saying something, when in reality you're thinking something different. Michael Gove would say there needs to be compromise on both sides. Then he would say that the European Union are not compromising. I wish Sophie Reed or some journalist would ask, where have we compromised? Can you tell us? Give us some examples of where we have compromised. The UK side is compromised. He won't. He'll talk about something else. Why? Because if he said we compromised, then the Brexiteers would lose their minds and ask and call for his head. He can't say we've compromised. He'll say that the European Union have to compromise. And then he will say when they get some, when they achieve something and say, look, the European Union compromised. People said that they wouldn't. I'm not saying that the European Union won't compromise. The European Union will compromise on issues that are not core to the European Union. I've said this before. Things that do not affect the core of the European Union, they're willing to compromise on. The European Union would like to have a deal, but not at any cost. And Michael Gove either doesn't understand that or pretends not to understand that. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?